You ready?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. Hey, y'all. Y'all should know us, but just in case you don't, I'm
Of course
Francina,
they know us. It's your boy Jasper. What's going on, y'all?
and we're here today just to be real and raw and authentic, just to share our testimony, and to talk about God's goodness and how He has really blessed us in a mighty way. And we're not doctors or physicians or anything. I did kind of want to put that out there. So when we get to the piece when we're talking about some medical things, just wanted to put out that we're sharing just kind of our journey and some things that we've been through and how God has seen us through it and He's continued to see us through it. So um, yeah, that's where we get started.
Yep, yep.
All right, so we're gonna talk about some events that kind of led up to a sickness that I kind of went through a couple weeks ago, and we felt like these events will be very relevant to just show you about how good God has been to us and how He's kept us. So we'll start with August of 2023. I graduated with my master's in business administration from UAB, and it was a really exciting time because I worked really hard for 2 years just trying to obtain my master's and stay on track. And God was just so good and so gracious to me to allow me to complete that milestone in my life. Um, Another thing that happened prior to August, which was February of last year, God blessed me with a promotion that required me to kind of have my master's before I actually was able to post for this position. But just based on my experience and based on, God's goodness and His favor on my life, I was given the opportunity to be promoted in the company. It was one of the greatest promotions I ever received at my job, and so I was really just so grateful how before I even got the masters, how God blessed me and how He saw fit for me to be qualified in the eyes of others, and it was just really a great opportunity. So that happened in February of 2023, and then fast forward in August, I graduated my master's, and during this whole time, I was pregnant at the time with our third baby, Zola, and so it was just so beautiful to see how God um, kept us during that time while we were pregnant and had a lot going on, and how He was just continuing to shower us with His blessings and things. And so I think after graduation, we went to Panama City, right?
And we went down for a few days
Yeah,
before school started.
yeah, we went down a few days, yeah, before Eden started school and everything. And so we went down and spent some time as a family, had a great time, um, just being free from work and school and stuff, and the day to day obligations of, work and family and, all the things, children, and it was a really good time for me to relax as well because I, you know, was still carrying a baby, and we were very close to getting ready to have our baby. And so that was in August, and then in September, um, it was our delivery month. And so during this time, I am working very hard on a lot of work deliverables, trying to get things, knocked out, trying not to leave too much work for my team or whatever, and trying to just make sure I have everything in order or whatever. So this was my, third time going on maternity leave, and I was pretty familiar with just trying to make sure that things were in order before I got ready to go on leave. And so during this time, it's a very special time for me because we spend, we have our day to day time with the Lord, but I really, really spend a lot of time with the Lord during this time because um, our deliveries with our babies tend to be some of the most challenging times ever. Um,
They definitely bring the drama.
they never bring the drama.
Yeah.
But conceiving, God has blessed us where we've been very fortunate to, conceive fairly quickly or whatever whenever we're trying to conceive. And then, carrying the baby is always, pretty easy going for me. But when it's time for delivery, as he says, the drama comes. And so A lot of my time and our time with the Lord is really, intimate during that time because we're really just, trying to pray and, seek the Lord and talk to Him about, you know, the desires and the things that we want and so forth. But we all know when we get in the delivery room, God is going to move the way that He wants to move. And so I remember it was September 13th. Or was it 14th? September 13th. I was doing tons of cleaning. I was, I guess, nesting or whatever. I was doing tons of cleaning. I wanted everything to be right. Whatever. And so I look at him because he'd be like, sit down. But
It's whatever. The baby gonna come, whether the house clean, whether everything put up or not, and it'll be all right. Continue.
Okay, so anyways, I remember doing all this cleaning, excuse me, and so then September 14th rolls around and I have a doctor's appointment, and so all that cleaning I was doing on the 13th, on the 14th when I woke up, I was in some pain, I was tired, and I was just kind of attributing it to, you're a week away from, your due date. Our due date was the 21st. And so I was just, just kind of thinking maybe that's why I was like that. But really, I probably was in a lot of pain and stuff because I had been doing all that cleaning and stuff. But anyway, so I knew we had a doctor's appointment and I got to the doctor's and Dr. Brown was like, hey, your blood pressure is very high. No, the nurse told me. She said, it's high. And she said, he's probably not going to let you go home right away. And so I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. Because with Eden, my blood pressure was very high as well. And I was induced and, thankfully we were still able to have a vaginal birth and not go through a C-section or whatever, but that was why I was induced with Eden. And so I'm already familiar with like inductions. And then with Haley, I was induced with her as well. Still was blessed to have a vaginal delivery. But again, I'm familiar with inductions, but I did not want to be induced. Like, I don't like being induced at all. And so when the nurse said that most likely our doctor, who was Dr. Brown, he was going to want to keep me or whatever, I just remember being like frustrated and just like, no. I just wanted to experience like, the whole being at home and your water break and then you go to the doctor, not another induction. But anyway, so they checked it again, like a couple minutes later, and it was still elevated. And at this point, they're like, we're not going to keep checking it because, I'm upset and I'm anxious and whatever and stuff, and it's just, driving up my numbers. So anyways, moving forward, they ended up listening to the baby, and the baby did not have a lot of movement going on at all. And because of the drastic decrease in movement from like my previous appointment, which was like I think 2 or 3 days ago or before that date, there was a concern for the baby as well. So the blood pressure, and then you have baby not moving enough, and also they were doing this test, I forget the name of it, where they basically score the baby, and baby wasn't passing the test either or whatever. So anywho, Dr. Brown goes, we're gonna have to induce you tonight. So this is September the 14th. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, can I go home? Because I want to go home and I want to see my oldest two. I want to see my babies, before I get ready to have our third baby or whatever. And so he was like, yes. He said, you can go home. He asked me, he told me the time that I needed to be back for the induction. And I was like, okay, great. So you're at work during this time, right? Baby's at work. I'm communicating with him and doing video calls and stuff. And, we're calling on our village to let them know kind of like it's about to go down or whatever. So everybody was on standby anyway. So everybody's just kind of getting in place or whatever. And so I go and pick Haley up from daycare and then get home. And Eden, did she ride the bus or did you go pick her up from school? You check her out?
Yeah, I checked her out because it was right here at the cutoff time to check her out.
Right. So he checked Eden out from school, and we all get here and stuff. And I had talked to some of my close friends, and we, prayed or whatever and stuff. Because during this time, the enemy is like saying things like, you're not going to come home to your children, just all kind of foolish stuff. And so I called on my close friends, and they prayed, and we prayed and stuff. And so our village gets here, and we, kiss our babies, let them know Mama's about to go have a baby and stuff. And we get in the car and we go into the hospital and get inducted, induced or whatever. And so after getting induced, I guess I labored all that night, I believe, yeah. And so we've been through this before with our other two, getting induced. So I know by now that, once you get induced or whatever, it is not time for you to go to sleep. You need to be up, So my nurses were really good. They were, flipping me from position to position, and I was asking for certain tools, like bring me the peanut ball, bring me this, to kind of help open up my cervix, because the baby was super high, which our other two babies were like that too. They're always super high, and we needed the baby to come on down. And so, anyways, they're still monitoring the baby's movement. Baby still is not moving a whole lot, at all. And so, we just begin to pray, right? Like we begin to pray, we begin to worship. With each one of my babies, one thing that I do is I create a playlist for them as I'm carrying them, as I'm pregnant with them. And the playlist just have songs that minister to me and that are very special to me during the time that I'm carrying them. So at this time, we don't know what we're having, like everything, with our third baby, we just decided to find out at birth. And so I have a baby finale playlist or whatever. And basically it just goes through a bunch of worship and praise and worship songs that really speak to us. And so we're not having a lot of movement, meaning my cervix isn't really doing a lot of thinning, and there's not a lot of opening that's happening. It's just not a lot of movement is happening. And so unfortunately we already know, like, when that's happening, and if my health is at risk and the baby's health is at risk, we could be looking at a C-section. And so Dr. Brown comes in and draws on the board, and didn't he draw on the board? He drawed on the board and pretty much showed us, hey, this is what your cervix looks like, this is what's happening, what's going on, but this is what we need to happen. And because this isn't happening and it's been this length of time, I'm going to come back and do another check soon. And if we're not there, he said, we're going to have a C-section. And so I was like, now Lord, I don't want a C-section. If it's your will, it's your will. But that's not what, I wanted. And I didn't believe that was God's will for us either. Like, we had been there before with Eden and with Haley, where we were always super close to having to have a C-section, but we know the power of prayer, and we know the power of worshiping. We had our Bluetooth, blasting in the room, and we were just praying and worshiping, and I was like, this baby's gonna come down. And that baby did just that. That baby came on down, and we delivered, and we had another baby girl, third baby girl. Y'all continue to pray for Jasper. Third baby girl, named her Zola Marie, and she has been such a joy to have. So anyways, that's just kind of high level of kind of our birth story with our third baby. But one thing all of our girls have in common is that we've had a village of prayer warriors praying for us while we were, trying to get those babies to come down. All three of them were induced. Although they were, thankfully they were vaginal deliveries, it was a process, and God, he saw us through each, one of those deliveries. So we give God praise for that. We are constantly thanking him just for how he kept us. So that was September.
Let me chime in real quick.
Go ahead.
So, and also I want you guys to understand, when all of these things are happening, like in the labor and delivery room, and we kind of talked about the other two in the book, but on this situation, in my mind, I'm thinking, we've heard of several situations to where the woman doesn't make it through, right? Childbirth and things like that. And so these ideas or these thoughts sometimes they do kind of creep in your mind in terms of, because I know I was looking at Babe when the doctor said, hey, we might have to do a C-section. I know you don't want to, but it's kind of looking C-section-ish, right? And and immediately after he leaves the room, look at Babe, and I already know because I don't have anxiety issues, but at that point, my anxiety is going up a little bit. I already know Babe's is. But I think it's important because in that moment, we don't want to, make it seem like we're not having thoughts of, stuff going left or anything like that. Yeah. But I do think it's important to be very intentional on how you respond. And then that's when, as soon as he left out the room, I think he was talking to the nurse outside, and I pulled Babe aside. I grabbed her hand. I was like, "All right, let's go ahead and pray, right? Because we've been here before, and that's the thing about going through these things where God sees you through. You can always go back and call on those memories. And so I was like, we've been here before, so we went ahead and prayed, and of course, like she said, we turned on the worship music and things like that, but. It's one of those, and of course, God saw us through it. God blessed us and rewarded our faith in that moment. But just make sure you understand, when you're going through stuff is gonna happen, right? With this whole video is about stuff that's going on, right? Even in good times, because God's blessing us with a new healthy baby girl, great time. But even throughout that, the enemy wants to come in and wants to take your happiness and your joy and your peace. But you got to understand that it don't come from him, so you can't let him take it, right? So you go back to the source and where it came from, and God will see you through it.
Yes, He will.
And so
that's good.
We had the of course the birth, and fast forward a little bit.
October.
That was what, September, October. Yeah. All right. What happened in October? Hold on.
October was the car situation.
Oh, yeah, Lord.
we won't go into full details on that.
Not gonna go into full details, but we started having car trouble. Now, mind you, brand new car that we purchased in 2020. We paid it off, and so it's 2023 at this point, and so 3 years old. And all of a sudden, we're having this tremendous car trouble. We're going back and forth with the dealership, and all of this. Pretty much, we start having car trouble October 3rd. And I think we finally got the car fixed and back. Towards the end of November.
It was the first week of December.
Oh, December. So we were without the car for a long time, down to one vehicle, trying to get around, and 3 kids and appointments and all of this stuff, and it was entirely inconvenient. And even in that moment, it's like they're testing your patience, and you really want to give them a few choice words that I like to call sentence enhancers, but you try to be the good Christian people you're supposed to be, and, not cut somebody out. But it's even that was just a headache of a situation. But even throughout the midst of it, Babe and I were talking, and we were like, I was telling her, I was just like, I kind of wonder, and Bishop even preached a sermon on it, and I was just like, it was one of those moments where how somebody's preaching, and then you're like, oh, that word was for me. That's about this situation. And I was just like, I kind of wonder if it was about the situation, but it was kind of like about expectations and how oftentimes we set them for ourselves and for situations without any knowledge or expertise or anything like that. Like what was wrong with the car, I honestly had no clue of how long it would take to fix it. Right? And so it was the idea that we thought we'd take the car to them, they fix it in a couple of days, we're good. And because that wasn't happening, that's what was increasing the frustration and the lack of customer service with the dealership and stuff like that. But, it was one of those moments where we kind of created that expectation, for ourselves that we should have the car right back, So, we kind of got through that moment. And so that led all the way up until December. And then, Lord, we got hit.
We did.
We got hit with illness. First, it was
November.
It was the tail end of November. Haley started.
It was towards the beginning. Eden was before Thanksgiving.
Was she?
It was Eden first. Eden.
Well, it was Haley and Eden at the same time-ish, right?
Well, Eden and Haley were sick So Eden and Haley started like showing symptoms of like, like cold symptoms and stuff like the beginning of November. But Haley's were kind of like on and off, and then Eden's were a lot more consistent. And so the reason I know it was beginning of November is because we ended up taking Eden, to the doctor, and that's when she was diagnosed with the flu. But it was also during the same time that Zola had her 2 month appointment, which was like right after November 15th. So it was like the week or so before Thanksgiving. That's how I remember it.
Mid to late November. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So Eden got flu variant B. She was down. Haley had a few symptoms, but then she seemed to have a recovery. So when she hadn't had fever within 24 hours or whatever, she was bouncing around. She seemed good. So we sent her back to school. But Eden was, kind of down pretty bad. And the thing about it is Eden has my immune system, guys. And so she doesn't get sick at all. I can't even remember the last time she had been sick. And so she was down, took her, they checked her. She had flu B. And then literally days later, if not like 2 to 3 days, it wasn't very long at all, Haley gets another fever.
Yeah.
And she goes down, right? And we call back up there to the pediatrician. They're like, yeah, they're pretty sure it's the exact same thing or whatever. So they prescribe Haley, the Tamiflu or whatever, and pretty much say, she probably got the flu as well.
Right.
Didn't necessarily take her to get tested because they sleep in the same room and things like that. She was like, pretty sure it's the same thing. So both of them got flu B. All right. Maybe a week later. I don't even know if it's a week later.
It was quick.
A few days later, Zola starts coughing. Now, the whole time that both girls have the flu, we got them quarantined upstairs because, of course, we got Zola downstairs, and we're very adamant on like, nope, you can't come in the room with her, can't be in her face, and nothing like that, because obviously at this point she's a couple months old,
right?
And so they're separated, but then all of a sudden Zola starts coughing. And we're like, oh Lord, babe, she was just like, I think it's something. So take Zola in, get her checked. She comes up positive for RSV and for a common cold, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
At the same time, and we're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And so she had that. And, RSV is incredibly dangerous for babies or whatever. And so it was one of those. We continually we're praying every night when we pray for everyone's health and things like that. And it's one of those that you just continue to do. You continue to pray for full recoveries and things like that. And so I remember vividly, it had been about a weekish, and she had kind of stopped coughing.
She did, yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, maybe she's back, right? Yeah. Maybe she's bouncing back, and I'm holding her up, I'm playing with her, and Zola coughs in my face like 3 times.
Yes.
Like I was like, oh, RSV, no. And so I don't think a lot about it. And literally a couple days later, I feel like I've been hit by a bus.
Y'all, he was, oh my goodness.
It was horrible. It was horrible. This is right after, actually, if you watch the video where Babe was cutting up in Burlington over these Christmas gifts. So we get home that night, and I am freezing cold. Like, I go lay in the bed, full sweats on and everything. And then I get up, and I'm like, okay, I just feel tired. Like, and I don't take naps and things like that traditionally throughout the day, but I was like incredibly tired or whatever. And I was like, babe, I don't know, something don't feel right. I was like, babe, come feel if I'm hot, right? So Babe comes over. She barely touched me. I don't even know if she actually touched me.
Y'all, we have had so much sickness in our house at this time until, like, it wasn't that I didn't want to touch you, but it was more so, like, our counters were filled with, like, disinfectant stuff, and then you had another counter that was just filled with, like, medicine. And between all the quarantining, and keep in mind, like, while these children are sick, Babe's still going into work, grinding, doing what he's doing, and I'm home with these kids on maternity leave, whatever and stuff. And so I am just over sickness. So when he's like, "Come touch my head," I'm like, "Oh Lord."
If I'm feeling sick, Babe come over there and she's like, "Oh yeah, you burning up." And so next thing I know, I see Zola getting snatched away.
Yes.
Like, cause she was laying like on a blanket in the bed right next to me, so she getting pulled away. I'm like, "Babe, I'm finna go in here anyway. I'm gonna go in the living room or whatever." Because of course we definitely don't want to, with her having RSV, don't want to get her any more ill or anything like that. And so next day, we go to the doc in the box, and they give me the swab for COVID and flu. And then I told them, I was just like, "Hey, my youngest baby has RSV. She just coughed in my face. I don't know if this is it or what." So they also do me the rapid test for RSV. Everything comes back negative. But I still had a fever, and I was just out of it. I felt horrible. And so then they did the PCR?
The PCR test.
The PCR test. They said the results would take a little bit longer to come back. We leave, get back to the house. Sure enough, they call me like, "Yep, you tested positive for flu A." And I'm like, okay. So, I'm going through the flu A. I'm down for about a week. And it's just like, oh man, both girls had flu B. Zola had RSV and a cold. Now I got flu A. And Baby's doing everything to try to make sure everybody is quarantined in their areas, but also getting food and drinks and, what they need, and she's, working, around the clock to take care of everybody, nurse everybody back to great health. All right. So what, about a week later, I'm back.
December.
I'm back.
He is back.
I'm back. I'm back at work, and
back. Well,
I'm feeling good. And then Babe is just like, "Oh, I think I got a little tickle in my throat." And I'm like, "Oh Lord, nah, Babe, let me go ahead and fix you some tea or something."
Yeah.
And so
now he's nursing me.
then she's starting to feel, she didn't go down like I went down. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I don't really know if it's the flu, because it took me about out of here, guys.
Yeah.
But she started getting a tickle in her throat. And then Haley had made a recovery as well. But then all of a sudden, Haley goes back down. Mm-hmm. And so we take her to the doc in the box. And they, same thing, rapid test for flu, COVID, and strep. And the strep comes back positive. Everything else came back negative. But, she's also, you can tell she's physically sore. She's extremely tired and things like that. And then I kind of detailed my experience, and they were like, "Well, let's just go ahead and do the PCR test on her as well." And then so when I'm on the way to CVS to pick up the antibiotics for strep, they're just like, "We only got one of them ready. The other one ain't ready yet." I'm like, "The other what?" And they were just like, "The Tamiflu." And right then, Babe is calling, and she's like, they came back positive. She got flu A as well. So she got strep and flu A. And we were like, oh my goodness. And so I'm like, all right, so I get the medicine or whatever, trying to nurse her back to health. And right about this time, guys, we're literally, this is the week before Christmas, right? So it's looking like, the house and people are going to be sick for Christmas.
Right.
All right. And so, Babe started to progressively feel kind of worse over a couple of days. Mm-hmm. And so I remember we had the conversation of, we hope no one feels horrible on Christmas, so we can enjoy Christmas as a family. And then Christmas comes. Mm-hmm. Literally, Christmas Eve, we traditionally do a Grinchmas, and we cancel that because people are feeling horrible. Yeah. But then Christmas comes around, and again, God answered our prayers because everybody felt okayish. Yeah. Everybody felt okayish. Babe, everybody else had kind of recovered. Yeah. Babe is, she didn't feel, I guess, as bad. We have Christmas. We enjoy Christmas. Mm-hmm. All right. Pause.
Sorry, guys. We had to take a little break there. And we may have to take others because we got 3 kids.
All right. So we had a good Christmas. Mm-hmm.
We pushed her, though, because...
Yeah. They got very tired.
Yeah, I got very tired.
Throughout Christmas. Mm-hmm. And so next day...
26. Oh gosh.
Babe feel like crap.
Yeah. Babe had to go back to work. And so I had all 3 girls here, and I just remember, like, my oldest two having all of their, like, a lot of their Christmas stuff in the middle of our floor. Like, we're downstairs in our family room, and I was just like laid out on the couch, and I was going like from the couch to the floor, and I was just really fatigued. I was very tired, and I started experiencing like some issues with just like kind of being comfortable like with breathing. And so I was taking, I don't even know what I was taking at this point or whatever. I
think
taking,
it was like some cold and flu medicine.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, babe is nursing, right?
Yeah.
So, she's breastfeeding. So, you can't, breastfeed and take Tamiflu.
Yeah. Well, it was something like I couldn't take Tamiflu. There were a lot of things I couldn't take, but there were some things I could take, and whatever I was taking, I just kept taking that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like cold and flu or something.
But we did not go to the doc in the box because babe was experiencing the exact same symptoms that I had, that Haley had.
Right.
And so we were pretty sure, again, like babe started kind of at the beginning of the video. We're not doctors.
We're not.
But exact same symptoms. She's having chills like I was having, total body soreness, all of this stuff. And because it had been circulating in the house, we were pretty positive it was flu. But because all they would do was prescribe the Tamiflu, we didn't go because she can't take that, right?
Right.
And so we were thinking maybe just a few days, just like us, and she'll bounce back. She'll be back. But I'm going to work throughout these days. Actually, I might have taken off a day or something, a day or two or something like that, like when you were down really bad.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. So, I know on the 26th, I know you went back.
Yeah, I went back to work the next day.
And then I remember on the 27th, that's when I went to the first ER.
Yeah, because babe called me at work.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't do it.
Well, up until that point, it was just the I think the pain and the chills. Right. But then on that day, she called me at work and she was saying she was having a tough time breathing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, definitely didn't experience that.
I'm sorry. I hear our baby.
Okay. Pause real quick, guys.
We'll be back. Hey y'all, we're back.
We're back, guys.
We got a baby with us too. She's playing right now, so she might have to join us in a little bit. She gets frustrated. So where were we?
So we stopped talking about, babe called me at work. She was talking about how she could not breathe, or she was struggling to breathe. And so left work, rushed home. I think you would call Charlotta.
Yes, I called Charlotta and asked her to get here. And she said that I guess you had already told her I had been like kind of really sick and not feeling well since, because I don't think I had talked to her since Christmas. So she was like, I'm on my way. My father-in-law was on the way, and she was like, Dad may get there. Excuse me, y'all. Before she gets here, but she was on her way.
So I get here, babe's breathing is very erratic, and you can tell she's struggling. So anyway, we go to the ER, and they check her in, and they get her back pretty quickly because I guess because of the struggle with breathing, they got her back there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They checked her out. They did the the same rapid test for COVID, flu, and strep.
And it was all negative.
Everything came back negative.
Yeah.
But she was also experiencing some sharp pains in her chest as well.
Right.
And so they took X-rays. They went back, did a CT scan, and it comes back that babe got pneumonia.
Well, we knew I had pneumonia because from the first.
Oh, this is the first.
Is this the first visit?
Yeah, this is the first.
Oh yeah, this is the first visit. Yeah.
So it comes back that you got pneumonia.
That's right.
And
sorry guys, I'm trying to remember because I know we both.
The thing about pneumonia is, and I will be the first person to admit, I'm incredibly ignorant on, or at least I was, on what all pneumonia was, what it entailed, so on and so forth, right? Because honestly, growing up, the only time you hear about pneumonia is someone old getting it, and honestly, usually it'd be like they got pneumonia and died. It's really all you hear. And so it's like, what? Pneumonia? Okay. I don't have a lot of experience with that. Um, but they prescribed some antibiotics and asked Babe, does she want them to admit her to the hospital or do she want to go home and take the antibiotics?
Right.
Of course, they would be more comfortable at home, so she took the home route. So we come back home, we get the antibiotics, and over the next several days, taking them, it seemed like Babe was actually doing okay-ish, like improving, not a lot, very, very marginally each day.
Yeah, like I went in on the 27th to the emergency room visit, and I think like the 29th, almost the 30th, which was his birthday. Like I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling a little better, and I really thought I was getting better, and so they gave me antibiotics, but they also gave me a cough syrup as well to take, and so I felt like I was doing better and making progress, and then I remember like for his birthday, like I don't even think I can get out of bed for real.
Yeah. It took a turn.
Yeah, it did, and so I felt so bad because I'm like, it's his birthday and we normally celebrate. We had plans and everything, had our sitter lined up, in regards to, having somebody here with our girls and we're going to go out. And, it took a turn or whatever and stuff. And so we still tried to celebrate as best as possible or whatever, because birthdays are a big deal, to me and to our house, to all of us. We celebrate birthdays pretty big here. And so, I just remember I remember not laying down. Like I couldn't even lay down to sleep or try to rest. Like by now I'm sitting upright in the bed and I have all these pillows, stacked behind me and stuff. And like, I could not lay. And my right side is like in extreme pain. But like you said, we found out I had pneumonia that was in my right lung. So I'm assuming like, oh, this is why, I'm experiencing all this pain or whatever and stuff. But, it definitely got bad.
And we couldn't get her fever to break.
Yeah.
Like you had a constant fever.
Yeah.
And we were rotating on several days, Tylenol and ibuprofen.
Yeah.
But the fever just was pretty constant. Or if it would be like, okay, maybe let's spread out how frequently you're taking the pills, then it would be right back.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't break. And then like I was home for a few days, but then as it seemed like maybe Babe was doing a little bit better, I went back into work. And then I get home, this is probably almost a week later. And Babe's breathing is very, very erratic. Like she couldn't finish a whole word without pausing to breathe in the middle of the word. And so at that point I was like, this don't really sound good. It don't look good. So I reached out to Candace, a great friend of mine who is a nurse, and I was just asking her, kind of about pneumonia, her experience with it, and I ran the scenario by her, told her what was going on, that we went to the ER, but she was struggling to breathe like between words or whatever, and she was just like, yeah, if you can't get a whole word out breathing, then you need to go back to the ER.
Right.
And so we called Charlotta back over, and we went back down to we went to UAB ER at this point.
Well, we kind of called our whole village actually, because at this point my breathing is so bad until I am literally like praying to God, saying, God, give me your breath, like breathe in me. And so this was on January the 2nd. Jasper was at work, and did Eden call you? I think.
After
After I had already
No,
talked
no,
to
no.
you.
That was the first time. That was the first time.
Okay, okay.
The first time you called me, and then she called me a few minutes later, and I was
Okay.
like, I'm about to leave.
That's
and I'm
right.
coming home.
Okay, so for the second visit, I just remember being in the room, and Jasper's on his way home, and I just remember like praying and asking God, you give me your breath. You know, I had just been praying, like, God, give me your breath, like, help my lungs, help me to breathe. I had just been praying it and praying it. And as I was praying, you know, he was doing it, you know, and I felt God moving, but it was like I knew I was still in a, you know, very bad, you know, condition or whatever, to where I didn't need to lay down or whatever because something was going on. And I remember telling Babe, I was like, Babe, something is not right. You know, like I've never had pneumonia, but it's something else. And my mom and my dad, I had talked to them that day, barely talking to them because, again, I was struggling with breathing. And then my dad was like, you got to get your O2 level check and all this stuff. And again, we're not doctors, so we're not used to any of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I need to get my oxygen checked and, you know, all these things or whatever and stuff. And so, wow, Jasper's on the way home. And I'm like, hey, you know, I told him, I said, can you call your mom? I need your mom to come up here with our girls. Like, God just, I feel like, was showing me, like, you know, you're going to be going away for a little while. I didn't know how long, but I knew I was, you know, not coming back home that night because I could tell I was very sick. I was very ill. And so, as Jasper's coming home, you know, in my mind, I'm still mom, you know, and stuff. And so it's like, I want to make sure my babies are fine. I know Eden's about to start back, you know, school or whatever and stuff because winter, Christmas break is ending. I mean, all these things are like going through my mind or whatever and stuff. And then my 3-year-old comes in the room and she says, Mommy, can I pray for you? And so Haley, you know, she's praying for me. And as she's praying, she's also asking God to help Mommy to be able to breathe or whatever and stuff. So it's just a lot going on. I had some friends who called and no, I think maybe I hit video call or something. I don't know. But anyways, they prayed for me and stuff. It's just a lot of emotions going on at this time. Jasper, my baby. There's a lot of emotions going on at this time because I know that I'm about to leave my babies. I also know that something isn't right. And I know that God is breathing, you know, through me. I know that He is literally helping me. Uh-oh. He's been up, sweetie. You always been up on Daddy like that. Say it's okay, Daddy is love. But anyway, so it's a lot going on, you know. So Charlotta gets here, Jasper gets here, and Charlotta's helping me. She said, what do you need? You know, that's kind of like always her thing, or whatever, something. So she said, what do you want me to do? You know, like, I need to pack a bag. You know, I need to get to the hospital, whatever and stuff. And so she's throwing in the things or whatever as I'm pointing because, again, I can't really breathe well or whatever. And she's getting things together. And, you know, at this point, I'm telling Jasper, I'm like, hey, you know, we know that Zola is just, you know, only breastfed or whatever. I'm like, we got milk in the fridge, but breast milk in the freezer or whatever, but I need, you know, she's probably going to need more or whatever because she's a pretty good eater, whatever. And so anyways, it's just a lot going on, a lot of emotions. I'm leaving my babies and I'm just like, I bring Eden in the room and I begin to talk to her and say, Mommy, it's going to have to go away for a little bit. I said, but I'm going to be back. And I remember even struggling to say, like, I'm going to be back because I really don't know what's going on. I just know that I'm not coming home that night, you know. And so Eden is very mature and understanding for her age, you know, for her to be 7. And she's like, I understand. And she's like, God's going to take care of you, Mommy. And I'm like, yes, He is, you know. And so Haley's back in the room at this time and hugging the babies and stuff. And so we get on and I'm not sure when you talk to your mom, but, you know, she agreed to come on up or whatever because I'm like, I need somebody here with my babies, you know, to be able to, you know, just be that comfort, that love, that, you know, whatever it is that they need or whatever and stuff. And so we called my parents and stuff, I think like on the way or whatever, to let them know that, you know, I was going. And we were going back to the emergency room, not to the same one. We went to UAB emergency room this time. And so on the way there, you know, I remember being in the car, you know, just feeling God, you know, just really helping me to breathe, or whatever. And so we get to UAB. I don't even know where UAB. I don't know where Babe parked, like on the street.
We
or
actually parked right beside the ER.
We
It was
did?
a space right there.
Okay. And so he's getting me out the car, and as we're walking up, there's this guy smoking, and I'm like I'm telling Babe to kind of shield me, and he's like, and Jasper's trying to shield me away from inhaling the smoke. That's how bad my breathing was. Like I couldn't take even somebody else just smoking and breathe. Like I just couldn't take it or whatever. And so it's windy, it's cold. This was a really cold night. And so we get inside the emergency room, and just me, you know, walking in there or whatever, and getting in there, whatever. My breathing is terrible. I'm very fatigued, very tired, exhausted, or whatever. It was just like, all I can do is just say, Lord, just breathe, you know, just breathe in me or whatever. And he was doing that. And so as we're, you know, in the emergency room, they get me, you know, checked in pretty good or whatever. I mean, pretty fast. I mean, what did they hook me up to?
They gave you some oxygen in the ER.
Yeah.
So they went ahead and got you there. They went ahead and got an IV started because you were in intense pain. I think they were giving you some, maybe some type of pain meds or something like that.
Yeah, they definitely were. And like during this time, like you see so many like sick people there.
Oh
like,
yeah, the ER was
foolish,
man. There were people, you know, and it's different just because I guess, you know, we haven't been to the hospital outside of having a baby in forever. Right. And so I hadn't been to the ER since 2008.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, post-COVID and stuff like that, it's just a different world. There were people on stretchers in the hallway just laid out. There was a bed shortage, and so everyone couldn't have a room. You know, it's just crazy.
People were just lined up, you know, wherever they could fit you, you know, to kind of give you a space. And even during that time, as sick as I was, I just remember like praying for other people. Like there was his mom there. She had 2 car seats. And they were like they had like the little pink canopy on it, so I'm pretty sure they were little girls. And I saw one of the babies. They were twins, and they were very small. They were way younger than Zola. And so that mom was there, and I remember like, you know, as we were passing through, by this time they had me in a wheelchair, and I was just stretching my hands out, and I was just praying, you know, like God heal these people. You know, there were so many people who were just sick. And to see like that mom there with, you know, her twins, and she was by herself, it was just a lot going on, you know. And you saw all kinds of people just hooked up to all kind of stuff. So being in the ER alone was stressful. You know, it was very stressful just looking around, seeing sick people. I'm used to when you go to the ER, the waiting room is just the waiting room, you know, with people, but you had people stretched out everywhere. And so, I remember telling Babe, I was like, we got to go sit somewhere where I couldn't be around, you know, other people because they were just coughing and stuff. It was a lot, y'all. And so she's still spinning. So anyways, they get me back to a room, in the ER or whatever. And, as they get me back there, as Babe said, they kind of get me hooked up to a lot of different things. I know oxygen, and, they did an x-ray. Did I do a CT scan? In there?
Yeah, they did the X-ray. They did another CT scan. Yeah. Because that's when they came back and said that pretty much your whole right lung at that point was infected.
Yeah. Yes, and so that's when they began to kind of explain, like, hey, you do have pneumonia, but you have this other issue going on as well that we have to address right away. And so they begin to explain, you know, you're going to be admitted into the hospital and have to stay here for some days. And, just hearing all this stuff and trying to keep up and process what they're saying, it was just a lot. And so they explained that I had a lot of fluid that was around my lungs, and I had an infection as well. And so they were like, we gotta treat it, and this isn't anything you can, go home with. And so they began to ask me questions like, what happened with your first ER visit? Because we told them like, hey, we went to the ER on December 27th. And here we were on January 2nd, almost a week later, there with them. And we began to explain this stuff, and they began to explain to me that the antibiotic that I was originally prescribed was not doing anything to treat, the pneumonia that I had, and so basically, me taking the antibiotics that I was taking for my first ER visit, it did nothing, for me, or whatever. And so, just sitting there and just listening to all of it, I'm like, now God, you gotta move, like I know you're gonna move, and God began to speak, and he began to share, like, you gotta trust me. I'm gonna see you through this, but you gotta trust me. And I'm sitting up here hooked up to all this stuff, and I'm in all this pain, and it's just like, I trust you, God, but God, what is this? We don't know again what's going on. And so we sat in the ER room for a while, because it took them hours, like all night until the next morning, to actually move me to excuse me guys, the new room, or move me to the floor that I would be on, getting admitted into. And so
I had to leave.
Yes.
Because I had to drive back out here to get the girls ready for school or whatever.
Right.
Just because, Babe and I had talked about it, and one thing that was important to Babe, I felt like, they could have figured it out, whoever was here at the house with them. But one thing that was important for Babe is that, the kids at least have one parent, see them each day, and still kind of be here to, I guess, maintain whatever sense of normalcy we could in the moment.
Right.
And so I came back home to get them ready for school, get Eden on the school bus, drop Haley off, turn around, go back to the hospital.
Yeah.
By that point, they had put her in the room.
Yes.
Or in a temporary holding room, actually.
Yeah, in a holding room.
They moved her to the floor and put her in a temporary holding room. So I was there for a little bit for that, but then I had to get to work.
Yeah.
But I think right before I got there, your doctor had came in, because you explained that at that point, they were saying that not only was the pneumonia there, the lung infection, there was fluid that had built up around the lungs.
Right.
And so, they're trying to map out a plan or try to figure out what was the next step from there.
Right.
I think they had put you on some different antibiotics or something at that point. And I had to leave and go to work. But I told Babe, hey, call me when the doctor comes in the room.
Yeah, so we were doing like a lot of, with Jasper, going in, like he was there in the mornings and in the evenings, and then like in the middle of the day. By this time, like my mom had gotten there. My mom lives in Florida, so, and her kids, she had just went back to school too with her kids. She's a teacher, and she came in town or whatever. So like during the day, I had my mom for the like first half of my visit, who was there with me during the day, and Babe was back and forth, but as the doctors would come in and kind of talk through what was going on, and they were trying to map out a plan too, because a lot of this they mentioned they hadn't seen before. They kept asking me, do I smoke and do I have asthma? Like they just kept, it was like, you don't smoke, you don't have asthma, and they were saying like typically what they were seeing in me, they would typically see it in, patients who were smokers, or maybe those who had asthma, whatever, and stuff. And so, anyway, so there was a lot of video calls with the doctors, when they would come into rooms. I was having, doctors from the thoracic team come in, and then also the pulmonary doctors coming in, and then the doctor, who was on the floor at that time, that was the considered like the primary. There were PAs that were coming in. There were tons of doctors just coming in, and like Jasper said, we don't, typically deal with things like that. We're used to just maybe pregnancy stuff, you know what I mean? Like dealing with our OBGYN and that's it, not a team of doctors. And so all of these doctors were working together to try to figure out a plan of what was the best way to try to treat, the infection and everything, and to help me out. And so during this time, I'm also having tons of CT scans and tons of X-rays. I mean, it's just like back and forth, And so, I'm still trusting God. We're still trusting God. We're still, believing that God is going to see us through, see us through this. And so, my mom, she was there. She was a really good advocate for making sure that, the nurses and everybody was, like my care was top notch, pretty much. But there were times where, it was just so overwhelming and there was so much of an overload of information until it was like, we got to take notes, we got to figure, take notes so that we can keep track of what's going on, because things were moving and these doctors were trying to really get a plan in place for me so that, we can get me better. And so, then they came and they talked to us and they said, hey, we're going to do a bedside procedure. And they said, with the bedside procedure, basically we're going to put a tube in you and we're going to drain out, this fluid. And they said it's, not really invasive or whatever. We can do it bedside. And they said, it's going to make you feel a whole lot better if you're able to, if we're able to get all this fluid out. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm nervous because I'm just like, what is a bedside procedure with, draining fluid out? And so our friend Candace, she was able to shed some light and help educate us a lot more. Let me tell you, Paul, thank God for friends, nurses, and doctors and stuff, people who are in this field who can really help educate you on what's going on. Because, even when you're dealing with very good doctors and stuff and they're trying to help you to understand what's going on, it's a lot to digest, And so sometimes you just need someone to break it down and, just give it to me and tell me exactly what it's going to look like. That's pretty much what Candace was able, to really do for us. And we were really grateful for that. And so, so after we, I'm feeling comfortable, feeling a little better about the bedside procedure. Was that on that Wednesday? It was that Wednesday.
Yeah, it was a Wednesday because we were on the phone. You video called me and told me what was going on.
Right.
And then I remember asking you, it's like, okay, when are they going to do it? Like, how soon are they going to do it? And I think they were still in the room at this point.
Yeah.
And they were just like, pretty much they got to go and get the stuff and come back.
Right.
And so you were like, in about 30 minutes. And I was like, all right, cool. Because, I work literally minutes, maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes from the hospital. And so I was like, all right, I'm dismissing class in like 15 minutes. I'll be there. And so, of course, I'm on two wheels. I'm getting there because although the hospital's not far, the hospital parking deck is ridiculous. Like, finding a place to park is absolutely absurd.
Right.
And so I get there, I get over to the room, and they won't let me in.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be one of those. I thought I'd be able to be inside the room. I don't know. Again, guys, not medical, all right? So I don't know the ins and outs and the procedures and things like that. And I didn't mind them not letting me in if that's how the procedure had to go. It's just that I had no clue I wouldn't be able to be in the room. So I'm standing outside in the hallway. I walked in at first, and they were like, oh, no, the doctor came over. Like, you can't be in here. It's a sterile procedure and all this. And so I walked outside the room, and I stood outside the door the entire time they're in there. And I hear, babe in pain and anguish. And let me tell you, as a husband, hearing your wife in pain and physical anguish is the worst thing ever. And so, of course, at this point, they had communicated what the procedure was designed to do, to put the chest tubes in, to drain out the fluid. But you know, you don't know what's going on. You're just on the other side of a door. You hearing somebody, you know, making noises and stuff, and it's just like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know.
And so the procedure did not go as planned. Basically, once they tried to get in, they explained that, well, for one, it pretty much it was too much for them to handle bedside, and that they should not have tried it. They mentioned that the fluid was so thick and was so great until a bedside procedure would not work. And so during this time, as they're explaining to me that this isn't working, I'm like, both of my arms are up and to the side because they're trying to go in from my right side. And, you know, they're trying to like give me medicine to kind of numb the area or whatever and stuff. And, you know, you see these doctors who they're stressed. You know, and I'm up here looking at them like, wait, you're the physician, like you're the doctor, like what's going on? You know, and so they look stressed, and you could just see worry on their face. You could see where they are confused, and all I can hear is God say, you gotta trust me. And I'm over here like, God, what is going on? Like, this isn't right. And he's like, you gotta trust me. You know, and I'm just, I begin to have thoughts about how, you know, black women be, you know, going through these different procedures and different things and stuff happen to them, and they're in there with predominantly white physicians and stuff, and that was my case, you know, and I don't have, you know, anybody in there with me that I trust at this moment. My husband is outside, you know, and I'm like, go get my husband, bring my husband in here, and they tell me that they couldn't because he wasn't, he had to be like sterilized and all this other stuff that he would have had to go through. And I'm like, whatever needs to happen, like get my husband in here. And so I'm in tons of pain because again, they attempted the procedure not once but like 2 or 3 times. They kept trying, and you know, they're apologizing and stuff. And it's that moment where, y'all, I am so angry because I didn't understand why I was going through it in the first place. But then also to be in so much pain, and then, you know, to be told that like, hey, we can do this with this procedure and blah, blah, blah to work, and it doesn't work. And then you're sitting there, you know, with physicians who are, they're stressed, you know, and they're apologizing and stuff, you know, because they couldn't do anything. And it's like, you know I have to trust God, but it was just so hard in that moment, you know, not to be angry. And I was telling Jasper, you know, later on, I said, you know, even in my anger and my frustration, you know, I had to, you know, forgive those doctors because, you know, while they were sitting up there doing what they were doing, the bedside manners had kind of left and they were just kind of all over the place. And, you know, I began to explain to them, you know, how I felt, you know, basically, you know, there was some treatment there that I didn't like that was going on. And I began to explain that to them, you know, after, you know, maybe about 30, 45 minutes had passed, and, you know, they got me back stitched up or whatever and stuff. And, you know, though I expressed my feelings and stuff, you know, I also had to, you know, forgive, you know. So I'm like, Lord, I'm over here in all this pain, and I'm over here, you know, trying to be positive and stuff and trust you. But why did they mistreat me like this? Like, why did this have to go this way? You know, and stuff. Like, I'm frustrated, and God is just constantly reminding me to trust him. And so, you want to go to Daddy now? Let's see. And so, hey there. So anyways, we are, at this point, my husband's back in the room. No, let me back up. There was this nurse who came in to give the doctors, she wasn't supposed to be in there, but she had to come in there because she needed to give the doctors some extra tools and stuff that they didn't have with them. Again, this procedure didn't go the way they needed it to go, and so they ended up needing some additional tools and stuff. And this particular nurse had been my nurse for like 2 days. And when she came in, I was just like, don't leave me in here, you know. And so she was like, I won't. And she stayed. And so I knew she wasn't technically supposed to stay, but because it had gotten so bad, I don't even think the physicians felt comfortable with telling her to leave. Because at this point, you know, they kind of know things that went left and went wrong. And like I said, it's a whole lot of other things that kind of happened, you know, bedside, to where it was a mess. And so as she was there, she was holding my hand, and, you know, she was like, I got you. She was like, you're going to be okay. And then she was just like, it's going to be okay. And so she was praying as well. And so I have all these physicians, and, you know, and I think there was some resident, you know, some people there who they're doing their residence, whatever, they were in there. I have all them in here, and then, you know, I have her who's over here holding my hand, and we're praying, you know, and stuff. And, you know, I just began to calm down then, you know, and stuff. And so anyways, later Jasper comes in, and was my mom here?
That was a couple days before she got here.
Before she got it. Okay. So, you know, he comes in, and so I'm just looking at him, I'm just crying. Because I just felt like, you know, for one, had my husband been in there, it would have been a little different. You know.
Yeah, what they told me was different from how she explained it went. Mm-hmm. They came out and told me that the procedure wasn't successful because of how thick the fluid was. Mm-hmm. You know, and I asked them, you know, why would the fluid be any more thick than I guess what it normally would be? Because kind of leading up to this, when everybody kind of talked about the procedure, apparently it's a very common procedure for people with pneumonia. It happens all the time. Mm-hmm. Real quick procedure, very simple, very easy.
Right.
We'll get you right in a few minutes. But then when it was unsuccessful, I'm like, okay, so why? And they were talking about how thick the fluid was.
Right.
The tube wasn't thick enough to get it out, and so on and so forth. And I was asking, you know, what makes the fluid any thicker or whatever. And at this point, they said, well, typically, because fluid can build up around the lungs, but the fluid itself not be infected. Right. They said, typically, if the fluid gets infected, like the lung is already infected, but if the fluid gets infected, then that's what thickens it.
Right.
And so now they're thinking not only is the lung infected, but then the fluid is infected. And so, you know, at that point, it's like...
Sorry, y'all. This is real life over here.
You want to pause it?
We can. Let me feed my baby. Like, she's going to sleep. You sleepy?
All right. We are back again, guys.
Y'all, we got 3 kids, so trying to get through a whole video with no interruptions, that's just not going to work right now for us.
So, when they finally finished, of course, the doctors were coming out of the room. I think I told you guys, they told me it was unsuccessful because of the thickness of the fluid and all of that. All right, and so then they left. I go inside. Babe is in there, very, very upset. She's in pain, and you know, she's detailing how, you know, I guess one of the physicians, it was a group of them that was in there, but the one that was trying to do the procedure, I guess, was the resident. And so, you know, he's like the rookie doctor, and you know, he's making mistakes and kind of admitting them, and the other people are like, hey, you're not supposed to do it like that, and all of this stuff is going on. Obviously, she kind of details all the drama surrounding it and how it made her incredibly frustrated and upset. And then she had been asking, like she said, to let me in the room, and they told her that I would have to sterilize and all this. They didn't give me an option at all, and at any point. And she told them it was fine, like I wouldn't mind. Mm-hmm. But so that just never happened. And then it was one of those pretty much, sorry, it was unsuccessful. We got to try again later type of things at that point. Not a whole lot more information. And so not that long after that, I think it was another doctor came in the room.
Yeah, it was, she was like one of the lead people of the unit or whatever that had tried to do the surgery, the bedside procedure, not the surgery, the bedside procedure. And so she came in and she did with an ultrasound.
Yeah, she was doing some ultrasounds just to see, I guess, where it was most easily accessible to get to the fluid. And she was saying how it probably should have went in, you know, on the back because it was more accessible there versus the side that they tried to go to. She was
Right.
saying how she was pretty confident that she could do it. But then it was just like, I guess once she heard all the details of what happened earlier, she was like, she sent images and stuff of the ultrasounds to her, I guess her supervisor to see, should they reattempt the procedure, or I think at that point the other option was to get her down to the OR instead of it being a bedside procedure, get her down to the OR and let the IR group take care of it.
Yeah, IR. Yeah.
And so I guess there's more specifically skilled. Maybe I don't really know all the differences, but and that's kind of where they left us off that night.
That night, yes.
Yeah.
That was Wednesday.
And I think the next day is when they came in, because that night, and all the while, guys. So what I'm doing is, in the mornings, I'm leaving. Or the prior night, I think I left, came to the hospital. I got the girls ready, got them on school, came to the hospital, was there for a little bit with Babe, until I had to get to work. I go to work, and then after work, I leave work, I go back to the hospital, hang out there for a little bit, get all the updates and stuff like that. And after that, when it's time for the kids to go to bed, I try to get here before they, go to bed. So of course, again, they'll at least see me, and I'm kind of back and forth like that, and so
you're doing a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot, And I'm like at the hospital, and I see it. Like he's being there for me. He's doing everything he can do to stay in the know and stay connected. But at the same time, like I mentioned, like, hey, I want some type of normalcy for our girls. So he's also trying to be there at nighttime, whenever they're getting ready for bed or whatever and stuff. And just, really trying to create that. And then in the middle of the day, he's, having work. He has things he has to get done for work or whatever and stuff. So, it's a lot. He spent hours with me, before work, and then hours with me after work. And then during the day, we're on video a lot because the doctors are coming in. But yeah, I'm so grateful for you. I've been I just keep saying, I'm so grateful for you. And I am, because I have a very good husband. And, just looking in retro and, from his lens or whatever, just trying to see like all the things that he was trying to do. He was doing a whole lot. So very grateful for an amazing husband.
Oh, thank you. And so the next day, this is the Thursday, they come in, and early that morning, the doctor came and pretty much said, all right, so it turns out it's either one or two options. They outlined either the IR team was going to try to repeat that procedure that was done using a thicker tube and things like that. But first, they were going to go with the pulmonary team.
Yes.
And the pulmonary team would look at the situation and determine whether they should repeat that with the other team or whether they would actually need to do surgery.
Yeah, and that's when we were like,
surgery? And so, guys, it was like every day, every update seemingly got worse.
Yeah.
Right? First it was, okay, yes, pneumonia. Now there's some fluid. Then, not only is there fluid, the fluid is infected. Now, we got to do a procedure. And then it was, the procedure didn't work. Now we got to do surgery. And it's like, what is happening here? And every time it just seems to get worse, right? And, when they told us they were going to have to do the surgery, they're like, all right, they were saying it was an either or thing. Yeah. And so I think by the time I left to go into work that day, a decision hadn't been made, but about midday throughout the day on that Thursday.
Right. They came in and, pretty much were like, we're going to need to do surgery. They were saying, it's too, the fluid is too great. There's way too much of it. And the infection is, just so large and stuff until our IR team, they can go in and do it, but they were specific and letting me know, is not going to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. And so,
because our team came in before I left.
Yeah, they did.
And they were talking about how they would defer to the other group, but if they decided it would be best for them to retry it, they were explaining the steps and stuff like that.
Right.
And so, went on to work. They called me, video called me. Doctor was in there. They were like, yeah, we're gonna go the surgery route. We can go in there and clean everything out. They don't need to be there. Get everything, fix everything pretty much.
Right. And the surgery, it would, be a little bit more invasive, or a lot bit more invasive than what the bedside procedure would be. And so, like, at this time, my mind is just kind of like, God said He's gonna keep me. By this time I've been in there since, was it Tuesday, and it's now Thursday, and so much has happened, in that window, and like Babe said, it just seemed like every update, things were just getting worse, and stuff. And so, I remember, by this time my mom is here. I think earlier I said she was here, but by this time my mom did get here on that Thursday. Yeah. So by this time my mom is here, and stuff. And so, I remember just talking to Babe, about like, let Mom, kind of be with me during the day and stuff like that. And, he was going home, checking on the kids and stuff and coming back and, doing all that back and forth. But I remember like just feeling, I don't know, almost like a kid, like very just, I don't know, like kid-like. Like it was like, I needed the comfort, of my mom. I needed the encouragement of my mom as well. And it was just a different feeling, because I'm used to kind of always being like that strong friend, or like that strong person, or whatever, that person that kind of prays for other people, and I'm there for them and stuff like that. But it was like, when my mom got there, I don't know, I just felt like a kid all over again, like who really needed, her mom or whatever and stuff. And so, my mom was there, and, we had been praying and talking and stuff. And we had been, I can tell she was trying to be extremely strong, and stuff, because, I mean, your child is about to go through a surgery. And like I said, I don't really get sick or get down or anything. I just, I don't want to say I just have babies, but for the most part, when I'm in the hospital, it's just, because I'm about to have a kid or whatever and stuff. And so, we begin to share with some of our very close friends and stuff, to let them know, what was going on and kind of where we were. And they were praying. I mean, we had people who were really, 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 really praying for us, and who were really praying, for me to get better and stuff. And so, just a lot of emotions on that Thursday. And so, I remember, turning on some worship music, and I had my mom to turn on my worship music and stuff. And I remember just getting into my word. I remember, like, even though people were calling and they were texting and they were, praying and all these things, it was just like I still, felt somewhat alone. I still, felt, I just felt like I felt very alone, and stuff. And so, I remember getting my word, and I'm gonna share just a few of the scriptures, that just, begin to kind of speak to me, and that really stuck to me and meant something to me on that Thursday. So on that Thursday, I remember reading John 13:7, and it says, Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." And so I just remember kind of like weeping and crying, because I didn't understand. I didn't understand why I was so sick. I didn't understand why I had taken the time to, take care of everybody else or whatever. And now here I am ill. I didn't understand why I had to be away from my babies, I didn't understand. She may want to go take if you have to step out with her, that's fine. And so, again, y'all, this is real life over here. So we we knew we couldn't get through a whole video without a baby. But I didn't understand, and so I just kept reading it over and over again, and I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm trusting you. Your word says, sometimes you have to, you go, I do this. I go, to the word. I'm saying, now, Lord, this is what you said. You said I don't understand. I don't realize, now what's going on, but I will understand later. And so I just didn't get it. I didn't get it. And I remember I shared with Babe at one time. I said, I feel like we've been cursed. I'm like, have we been cursed? He's like, no, we haven't been cursed, but I just didn't get it. I didn't get why we were going through what we were going through. And it was just really hard, to still push through, And so another verse that I read was Psalms 150:6. And it says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. And so even though I was struggling with my breathing, I had been through a lot between that Tuesday and Thursday, I still worship. I still gave God what I could give him. I still praised him. I didn't understand why, I was going through what I was going through, but I knew that I still, I knew that he was still good. I knew that he still, deserved, the praise. I wanted to offer up and to give him my best, even, though I'm hooked up to all this stuff or whatever and stuff. And so, and then there was 1 Thessalonians 5:18, and it says, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. And so, it is so easy to give God thanks when you are like, I talked about how I had got the promotion back in back in February. And I talked about how I had, graduated, with my master's in August. It's easy to give thanks then. It's easy to praise and to worship God then. It's easy to give him your yes then, but in the Bible, it talks about how you should do it in all circumstances. So even though I was in that hospital bed and I was struggling to breathe, and I had been through a procedure that didn't work, and I was, in some ways kind of mishandled as well, my treatment, my care was, and, regardless, in all things, in all circumstances, I had to give God praise, and that's what I did. I gave him thanks. And so the next one was, and I think this is the last one for now, is Psalms 4:3, and it says, know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. So during this time, things had got quiet, meaning I'm over here like, beforehand when I've been talking to God, and, the Holy Spirit had been speaking back to me or whatever, whenever I was going through, the hard time or whatever stuff between that Tuesday, Wednesday and stuff, I felt like the Lord was with me. But then like on that Thursday, I felt like it got quiet, and I'm like, now where you at, Lord? I'm about to go have this surgery. Like, where are you? And like, sometimes that happens in situations, where, God may get quiet or whatever, but he was still near, like he hadn't left me. And so Psalms 4:3 really spoke to me and really ministered to me, because it said the Lord hears when I call to him. So even though, the Holy Spirit, wasn't necessarily speaking to me on that Thursday, he got really quiet, he felt very lonely, he was still there, and stuff. And so it was just a lot of emotions going on that Thursday, but regardless, I still believe that God was so worthy and of all the praise. And so that was that Thursday, and so that Friday comes, it's surgery time. Friday.
And so Thursday before I left, I made sure to ask the doctors. It's like, what time is the surgery? They were like, we gonna get it done at 10 a.m.
10:15.
10:15. All right, cool, yeah. Cool. So the next day, now I go home, bedtime, kiss the kids, good night, yada yada, wake up, get the lunches ready, get them out the door, get eating on the bus. As I'm getting Haley in the car, we're literally outside, I'm buckling her in, Babe calls me. She video calls me. I remember distinctly, it was 7:47 a.m. because the earliest we can drop Haley off at daycare is 7:30. My plan was to get her to daycare and get right downtown to the hospital. So 7:47 a.m. video call, babe. Hey, good morning, babe. Hey, they're about to roll me down here for surgery. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Surgery at 10:15. Now, I know there are some preliminary things that got to be done before surgery, but again, I'm not a medical guy, and so in my mind, if I get there about 8:30, 8:40, I should be good. Maybe they'll come get her about 9, for the 10 surgery, whatever.
Yeah.
Now,
well,
Candace told me.
They kind of said that though. They kind of.
Well, Candace was just like, you need to be here at 8.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it at all. All I remember is that morning when you called me, I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
And so we get off the phone and I'm rushing, to get Haley to school. I get there, drop her off, burn and turn, get it back in the car. I'm on 2 wheels, trying to get down to the hospital because, babe about to go into surgery. And so also, I'll just be transparent with you guys. In that moment, right, and it hadn't really happened, I guess, on that level until this moment. But every day, every update, like I said, was getting worse and worse and worse. And so, I'm in my mind, I'm wondering, okay, what's the end result here, right? We got this surgery, and now it's like I'm not even going to see my wife before she goes into surgery, which was the plan. And I'll be honest with you, in that moment, the enemy came into my mind and was, put a thought in my mind that, I might not have my wife after this, and I remember specifically, like, while I was driving, thinking that thought, I thought to myself, man, nah, baby, ain't finna leave me these 3 girls I gotta raise. Like, oh no, Lord. And so instead of, falling into despair and worry and panic there, I knew in that moment, I was just like, this is not the thought. I was like, because I'm not a pessimistic person. I very much view myself as a realist, or even an optimist, because, I know what God can do in situations, right? He's been there in a lot of situations in our lives. And so I just know, it's important how you respond, how you react again. And so what I did in that moment is immediately put on my worship playlist, and drove to the hospital the rest of the way, praising, worshiping, getting my mind right, because I'm not going to fall into despair, when I know God is there with us. And so I'm on the way. Candace, she's texting. She was just like, hey, I'm looking at the chart. They got her up here. She's second. So they pretty much going to go ahead and get her in there. And I'm like, man, I'm pulling down to the parking deck now. She was just like, when you get here, don't go to the room. Meet me over here at this spot, because I'll take you to where she is. Because you might not make it in time. We were like, hey, it might not be a make it. And so, guys, I'm circling the parking deck, probably speeding inside the parking deck. Thank God I ain't hit nobody or no cars or whatever. But I'm trying to get in there because it's just like, I want to see my wife before she go into surgery. And I got parked, got in there, met Candace. I'm like kind of sprinting, fast walking, power walking down the hall. Met Candace. She took me in there. And it just so happened that she was in there waiting, but they were in the little holding area. Yeah. And I was able to see her, before she goes into surgery. And so that was a weight off my shoulders or whatever. Because just in that moment, you're thinking, hey, what if she don't make it out of this surgery? And then you're thinking, well, hey, what if you don't even see her before she go into a surgery that she might not make it out of? And it was just a lot of tricks playing or whatever. But after I was praising and worshiping, and just knowing that God, He's seen us through so many of these things. And You know, it's one thing I constantly tell Babe. I was just like, when we come together and we pray about something,
Yes.
there's nothing that we've come together and prayed about that God hasn't done.
Yes.
Like, in our lives. Um, every time he comes through.
Every time.
You know, except he ain't give me this boy, but you know, we also prayed that his will be done. So
We
you
did
know
pray that.
that
Yes,
might be
we
his
did.
will. So that's what it was. But
We did
other
pray
than that,
We did pray his will.
everything else, he's always came through. So while I was praying and worshiping and you know trying to get down there, the fact that he fixed it because you know I think they even say you know typically you know it don't take that long. I think they apologize for the wait or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, but I was able to get in there
It worked
and
out.
talk to Babe a little bit, and you know before they rolled her back for surgery and.
Yeah, it was funny also, or interesting rather, because I knew my husband was trying to get there, okay? And so there was some stalling going on. So before they took me down, I needed to use the restroom and stuff, and I had to have a lot of assistance getting up or whatever and stuff. So, like, they ended up having to get me out of bed and everything, and you know, help me get to the restroom or whatever. So that took some time or whatever. And then also the team that came to take me down, like they had some delays going on where they couldn't, leave right away the room or whatever. Everybody kind of has like their scheduled slot or whatever for when they can kind of go to the pre-op area. And so they had some delays, and so sometimes like we get like frustrated about delays and waits and stuff like that, but it was actually working for our good, because the longer it took for the team to figure out what all they needed to do or try to get their stuff together, the more time it was allowed for my husband, to be able to get here to see his wife. So praise God and thank him even in your delay, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? You never know what that means and what he's doing on the other side, because it could really be truly working for your good. So, and so I'm in what, pre-op? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, right before they roll you back for anesthesia.
Yeah.
After we talked for a little bit, they came,
We did.
got her,
Yeah.
was rolling her back, and at that point it was the waiting game, right? My mother-in-law and I, we went into the waiting area. They got a pretty good update system, so they update you on the progress all along. And they told us the surgery itself would take maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, and so we had been waiting probably about an hour, and then they called me back over to the desk. I go over there, and they like, okay, so the surgery just started. And I'm like, oh, okay. I thought they had been started, but I guess the whole time it was the anesthesia and waiting on that to kick in and all of that. And so, then I went back to where we were sitting, and I could see my mother-in-law kind of looking at me like, what's going on? But I told her, I was like, they just started the surgery. And she was like, oh, and she was probably thinking the same thing I was. And so we were sitting there. I think I went and got us some food. Went and grabbed some lunch or breakfast or whatever time. I don't know what time it was at that point. But we ate. We started talking to some of the other folks in the waiting room, and just kind of hearing other people's stories and situations, and we shared what was going on, and we were all keeping each other encouraged or whatever, and then after an amount of time, I get another call to come back to the little desk. And so as I walk over to the desk, there's a doctor over there, right? And as I approach him, he reaches out, he shakes my hand. He's just like, "Are you here for Wiggins?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm her husband." He's like, "Okay, I'm Dr. What's his name? Dr. Donahue." And I'm like, "All right, nice to meet you." And then he points to these little rooms that they got beside the desk, and I'm like, "What you pointing to a room for?" And so we go inside the little room, he closes the door, and in my mind, I'm like, what are we in here for, right? But then he just tells me that the surgery was successful, everything went well, she responded to it, And I'm like, okay, like, don't bring me in a little room, closing the door, like I'm just gonna fall out or something, and you don't want the general public to see it. But I understand why the rooms are there for everybody's privacy, because sometimes it doesn't go well, I guess. And so you have the room so you can have your reaction or whatever. But everything went well with the surgery. He said, we'll bring her back up to the room. She'll be in the recovery room for a little bit, and then we'll bring her back up there. And so, immediately, just giving God thanks, praising Him on the way back, that everything went well. I told my mother-in-law, we gathered our things, we went up to the room, and we were kind of waiting. In the meantime, Marcus came up. Our cousin Marcus, he came up and he sat there and chatted with us a little bit. Robert came up and chatted with us a little bit while we were waiting. But they told us it was going to be maybe an hour waitish, which turned into several hours waiting.
Like 4 hours.
Apparently, they were short staffed and they didn't have anybody to bring her up from the recovery room. So, but we were waiting a few hours for her to come back up there. They finally brought her back up. She was, kind of out of it. I think they had on some pretty strong meds or whatever. But just she wasn't in the same pain. Like there's pain obviously from the surgery, but not from the inflammation and the fluid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you could tell she was doing better, and so it was just a blessing, guys. God worked another miracle.
He did.
He answered yet another prayer, and he continues to do so.
He does. And like even after the surgery or whatever, like you said, I was in a lot of like just pain from surgery or whatever and stuff, but they were giving me meds trying to help out, but I was just still in a lot of pain. But one thing I'll say, like I mentioned to you guys earlier about how on that Thursday, I was in my word and I was studying and just really, connecting with God and stuff. Like that Friday, when all this was going on and getting ready for surgery and stuff, I was at such a peace. Like even when Babe came back there in the pre-op room, like normally, like he knows me, like he knows when I'm about to just lose it or whatever and stuff. But I was at such, peace. It was like, I don't know, it was like the best peace that it's hard to explain, but it was the type of peace that I had. It was just, I wasn't worried. I wasn't worried about the surgery. I wasn't worried about if I was coming out or not. I knew I was coming out. It was just this overwhelming amount of peace that just came over me. That came from nobody but God. Most people who go into surgeries and stuff, they'll tell you they're a nervous wreck. Sometimes they have to get things or take things to calm them down. But that wasn't my story. I was just at peace. The doctors were coming through. They were so so kind, that were coming through during pre-op to kind of talk to me what was going on and what was about to happen. And, they were really, encouraging and stuff like that. Like I was just at peace. And so I thank God for that, because, when you're going through, when you've been admitted since Tuesday and you've gone through what you've gone through, and now Friday is here, and it's like, yes, I'm about to have this surgery, but I know that God has me. I know that, He's not going to leave me. I know I'm coming out, better than what I'm about to go in or whatever and stuff. So once I was back up there in the room, like you said, I was kind of in and out from the meds and stuff. It felt good, to see, friends and family and stuff and people who, have been praying for me or whatever. It felt very good, but I think I ended up like going to sleep, but then waking up or whatever and stuff. The surgery team, they came in later or whatever to talk, and they began to tell us, they said, you had a really, 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 really bad infection. They said that fluid, the amount of fluid you had, I remember them saying, we don't know how you were even making it the days before. We don't even know how you were walking around, and stuff. And so they began to speak and say they said your youth and how healthy you are, played a major role in how you're still here, basically, and how this surgery, went well, and how your recovery will go as well. And so they were just saying, they had never really seen anything like it. They began to explain how they were going to the chest tubes that they had put in me. They were on my right side, so I had two tubes, and so those tubes continued to drain out more fluid, and so that Saturday I still had the chest tubes in. That Sunday they removed the first one, right? Saturday they didn't remove. That Sunday they removed the first one. And so when they took out the first chest tube, I was really excited or whatever and stuff because I was able to, kind of get up and try to walk and move again. It was like I had to learn how to do basic stuff all over again, like walking and lifting up my arms and stuff. And, those were things that I couldn't really do well, prior, to the surgery or whatever and stuff. And so it was just, it was like just trying to learn how to do things over again at this point. And so that was that Sunday. And then that Monday, did they remove? When did that?
Yeah, it was next day. They took out the next one.
Okay, next day they took out the next.
No.
No.
They took the first one out on Monday.
They took out. Okay, so that Saturday and that Sunday, I still had the chest tubes in, and so then that Monday, yes, they took out the first one, and then that Tuesday they took out the second one, and so even with the removal of those chest tubes, you're able to see all the fluid that's in there, and like even just looking at the fluid that was in there, in addition to the fluid that they mentioned that they removed from the surgery, y'all, that was a lot of fluid, and so, I'm so grateful that I didn't, and the doctors talked about this too, lay down or anything. Remember earlier in the video, I talked about how I was sitting upright in the bed and sleeping because it was too painful to lay down. I'm grateful that I didn't lay down because, they mentioned how that fluid could have impacted other areas of the body, like the heart or whatever and stuff like that. And, so I'm just so grateful for how God moved, in my life. I was telling Jasper, I said, one thing I learned about this was I've heard people say, like I'm a walking miracle, like, no, I really am a walking miracle. I know what that means. Whenever I hear people say it now, that means like you've been through something and you've seen the hand of God, move on your life in a miraculous way, in a way that man, physician, doctors, nobody, can do or whatever. It was nobody but the Lord. That's my testimony. That's my story. I am a walking miracle. And so, after they removed the second test tube, I was able to get up and try to walk by myself, and stuff. And that was a big deal because for so long I had been walking with assistants, like leaning on Babe or a nurse or whomever, and stuff. And so I just slowly began to see my strength, coming back. I began to see, how God was progressing me and moving me along. And so, I don't know, I get so excited and just so full, of thanks and gratitude and stuff because it was nobody but the Lord. It was nobody but Him. And so on that Tuesday, after they removed the second tube, the doctors came back and talked and they said, hey, we tried to figure out what this infection was. They said, but we don't even see the infection anymore. They said, and we were kind of like, wait, what? Because this whole time, they had told us about the fluid and this terrible infection I had, and they wanted to test the infection, like once they got the fluid out, so that they can kind of see like how to like send me home with treatment or whatever.
Yeah, the antibiotic. So in the hospital, the antibiotic that they were giving her was a very general, very broad antibiotic that would take care of a host of different things.
Right.
But what they were trying to do was to narrow it down to the specific bacteria that caused the pneumonia.
Right.
Give an antibiotic that would specifically counter that one. And so they did the cultures on the fluid to test it and see, and they were just like nothing grew, so they couldn't figure that out.
Right.
And so, they said her white blood count had returned back to normal.
Yeah.
So pretty much she was free of the infection. She had still a road to recovery. Still got a road to recovery.
Right.
But her breathing, they took her off oxygen. She was breathing on her own. Her oxygen level was maintaining where it needed to be. She was getting up, walking around. Her appetite was there. It had come back. She was eating. really just everything, like a complete
Right.
180, complete turnaround. And,
Right.
again, guys, it's just a testament to God's glory and His grace,
Yes.
and the fact that, He will take care of us. He rewards faith, guys.
He does.
If I can tell you anything that I know for sure is that God will reward your faith.
He will.
That's the currency for His kingdom. So if you want a miracle, step out there on faith. Rely on Him. Before, while our house was being built, we came in here and we wrote scriptures on the walls.
Yes.
And there's one. I don't know the book and the verse and all of that stuff, but it's one specifically, and I think I even quoted it in the book that I wrote, Stones. But he said, when you're going through a tough time, call out to Him and He'll come rescue you.
Yes, He will.
He wants us to rely on Him and have the faith that He is going to take care of it, because it's easy for you to put your faith in doctors, but guys, I mean, especially this day and age with social media, you see all these reports of how doctors are getting stuff wrong, they messing up, they making mistakes, and things are going left. It should have been a common everyday procedure. Next thing you know, X, Y, and Z happened, and all of a sudden somebody's gone, right?
Yeah.
And you see that so much, and I know it's very few and far between compared to how many cases there really are, but social media makes it seem like, oh, it's happening every day, every time you turn around. But the truth of the matter is, you don't know when it's going to happen or when that situation is going to be. But God is always there.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
I think it really does matter how you respond to the adversity, how you respond to the challenge, and that ultimate result from it, because He's definitely blessed us and He's definitely taken care of our situation. And I got my beautiful wife right here beside me. And y'all ain't got to raise these girls by myself, Lord. Babe, here to do it.
We're here to do it together. But yes, he is definitely so good. So I came home that Tuesday, and by this time my mom had went back home, and so my dad is with me or whatever and stuff. So he was with me like during the day, the second part or whatever of the week or whatever and stuff. And so on my way, home or whatever and stuff, I was emotional or whatever and stuff, of course, because I'm just, looking at, I've been in a hospital for a week, and just to be able to come home, was just everything. And so got home, I got to see my babies and love on my babies and see my husband outside of the hospital and love on him. And it was really beautiful. It really was. Even when I got home, I looked at my phone and there were tons of people who had been praying, for us and with us. And we couldn't even name all of them if I tried to right now, but we're very grateful, for those of you who were praying with us and praying us through, this really tough time, and who were still praying for us, because as Jasper mentioned, I do still have some recovery to go through. People had brought my babies food and fed us, fed my babies, and they were checking in on the kids, and it was just a host of people who were, in our corner, who really had our back, and we knew they had our back. And so even that within itself, it's important to be connected, to like-minded people, to Christians, to people who will pray, for you when you're going through, a challenging time like that. So we're so grateful, for all of you who were there for us. Like I said, when I got home, I read all the different messages and stuff, throughout those next couple of days or whatever and stuff, and I was just overwhelmed with the amount of love, that was being poured out to our family, and it meant so much. It meant a whole lot.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And shout out to everybody who, guys, because in this day and age with social media, it seems like maybe we're not as connected as maybe in years before social media. But this situation really kind of showed, like, whether it was Minister Tamika with the church who called and we prayed over the phone with her, several people who showed up and came to the hospital, even your team at work who sent, gifts to the hospital. the feeding of our family while we were in the hospital.
The Glovers were constantly, with
Glovers,
us. Yes. Thank you.
Mother-in-law, my mom, your dad,
We said we
father-in-law,
were gonna
my
name,
dad.
but here we're gonna name and we're gonna forget somebody.
No, I'm saying they came to take care of the girls, and my mom came to stay with Zola throughout the day, and
my
you know
aunt,
your aunt. And there was so many people who kind of reached out and activated and jumped in wherever there was a need, and so it's honestly just a blessing to see your village, because you might rely on this person here and there, but then when you're going through, I guess, a situation, to see all of those people kind of activate, get involved, respond. That was a blessing to be able to see that. Not that you think no one cares about you or anything like that, but to just see how much people do and how much they're willing to do. That was also a blessing. So
it meant, I was gonna say, like, it meant, so much to me, especially with those who are like jumping in with, my children, because like my baby at the time, she's 4 months now, but she was 3 months in. They tell you, I don't leave these babies. For a while, I don't leave them.
Can't go nowhere.
When they're first born, and so to be, as the doctors kept saying, you've been through a lot. I had a baby, 3 months ago, and then now you're going through, what I was going through or whatever at that time, and so. I was dealing with some postpartum, things as well. And so to have to leave my baby, and to be away from her for a week, and she's a nursing baby or whatever, I was still in the hospital trying to pump before the surgery or whatever piece came up. But like those first 2 days, I was still trying to pump and
asking the doctors, hey, with this medicine, can we still use this breast milk? Or we got to dump it, trying to navigate those waters.
Yes, I had to feed my baby and stuff, and stuff. So, just, being there or whatever and stuff, but at the same time, having some level of comfort knowing that, the people who are at home with your babies, our family, our friends who were checking in to see what they can do and stuff, like, these were people that, we trusted and stuff. It just showed, it was eye-opening for me, like, I'm always like, I'm not leaving my kids, like their first 1 or 2 years of birth, I don't really leave them. Doesn't go nowhere. Thank God for my husband to be patient with me during those times. But that's how I am with my babies, and stuff. And so to be away and, I would, thank God for technology, I would, ping into the cameras to look to see, how they were sleeping and how they were doing, and if Haley had woke up at night or not, and had a bad dream or something. I'm at the hospital doing all these things, but at the same time, I know that they're in good hands. So, yes, thank you to our village, and thank you even to the I had some nurses at UAB that were really, really, really good. And let me say this: I also had some Black nurses that were phenomenal. I'm talking. They would pray with me. They were so supportive, so encouraging, and that really meant a whole lot to me. Nurses, I don't think they get the credit that they deserve, because they're with you all through the night and all during the day and stuff, and seeing what you're going through and trying to help you, get through this sickness and this illness that you may have. And so there were 2 nurses that I had there, 2 Black nurses that really mean, a whole lot to me. And I'm so grateful for them, because they stood beside me and they would advocate for me. They were not going, to let something go undone. Like, they were there. And so I'm really, 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 really grateful for them, because again, when you're in the hospital and stuff, and being a Black woman and stuff, and just hearing things or whatever, I know for me it felt good to be able to connect with someone that looks like me, and so I'm very grateful for them. They know who they are. They may see this video or whatever and stuff, but I'm very grateful to have had those nurses there. So but yeah, so we thank y'all for watching this video. We really do. We know it's long, but we pray that as Jasper so eloquently said, that it is a vessel, that it is something that is being that can be used to maybe help you or maybe help someone that you know. We just
Hold on,
pray.
Randy.
We just pray that, our story, my testimony about how God, has healed me and how He's continuing to heal me and to restore me, that it would help you. I don't know, maybe you're dealing with cancer, or maybe you're dealing with, some illness, or maybe you've been told, we don't know what's going on or what to do. Just understand and know that you just need to put your faith and your trust in God, because one thing that I told y'all, God kept telling me in the beginning is, you're gonna have to trust me. He made that clear. You're gonna have to trust me. And that's exactly what I did. I trusted Him, and He brought us through. And so we're on the other end of the spectrum now, where we're working through me recovering. Still at home with some things, and I know that just like He brought me through, He has no respect to man. He'll bring you through as well. So God bless y'all. We love y'all. Thank y'all for watching.
All right, we'll catch y'all
Bye, y'all.
on the next time. Peace out.